Hey everyone, welcome back to Topher Drives, where this week I have been daily driving the 2025 Hyundai Ioniq 5N. And to be honest with you all, it's been really tough for me to be excited about any EVs at this point until I got in this and drove this. And in fact, ever since I heard about this, I have been very much looking forward to driving it. The reason it's so tough is because in today's market, there are so many EVs and they all pretty much drive the same. And I mean, honestly, a lot of them look the same too. So when we review these electric cars, it's really just about the interior tech, the range, how fast it can charge, kind of just boring consumer stuff, which I know is important. And I know electric cars are quite useful for quite a few people, but this one is different. This one kind of tailors a bit more to car enthusiasts, driving enthusiasts, people that like to drive on the track, and overall it seems like something that can truly do it all. The regular Ioniq 5 prior to the N coming out was one of my favorite EVs, and this N just takes it to the next level. So today I'm going to meet my parents for dinner. We're going to take this around our quick little performance loop and then we'll jump on the highway. We'll talk about what this thing has been like to live with this week, and it's hard to tell you why this is so cool until we get out onto the road. But you guys have probably seen some videos on this car. You know about the simulated engine noise, the gear shifts, all that cool stuff. I love that Hyundai considered enthusiasts when making this car, and I think this may be a glimpse into the future of what enthusiast cars will be if things kind of continue moving in the direction of becoming fully electric. But let's talk about some numbers before we quickly walk you around this, because we kind of know the Ioniq 5 already at this point. But we have dual electric motors on this, 641 horsepower when you're in N-Grin boost, that is our max power, and 568 pound-feet of torque. It's all-wheel drive, of course. 0 to 60 happens in about 3 seconds. And man, we still have all of the excellent design language that we had on just the regular Ioniq 5, which I always thought kind of looked like a Lancia Delta Integrale. I know that's kind of what everyone said. And now that it's gotten the N treatment, I think it looks even better. I love this front kind of faux grille design. I love the wide arches. I love the 21-inch wheels that we have wrapped in specific Pirelli tires that were made for this car. This thing's got about 4,000 miles on it, so it has been driven by some other enthusiasts, journalists, and YouTubers, but it seems to have held up decently well. Let's walk you around this thing real quick, and then we'll jump out on the road. As far as packaging and everything goes, I mean, you guys know this Ioniq 5 by now. We have a ton of room in the back of this thing, and that is what was always so nice about the regular Ioniq 5, is it had the awesome kind of retro future looks, and it kind of was an SUV disguising itself as a hatchback. And I think that formula is even cooler here with the Ioniq 5N, because this is still a massive car. It weighs 4,800 pounds, but you also have a ton of room in here to do whatever you need to do. Lots of trunk space. These seats fold down and you have even more space. While we're back here, I do want to mention, you'll notice when we get out onto the road, this has a terrible hatch rattle. And the Topher mentioned in his video that Hyundai and Kia have kind of been struggling with this whole hatch rattle thing for a while. It's been kind of prevalent since the Kia Stinger. So, I mean, back, what, 5-6 years ago when that car came out. Also, apologies for the wind. It is quite windy today. Let's check out the back seat and then we'll jump in and we'll go for a drive. I want to talk about the size of these rear doors. I mean, look at this. This is huge. It reminds me of my old E32 BMW 7 Series that I drove in college. The door size, the rear door is massive. This is like the long car. Hyundai Ioniq 5NL, I suppose. Not actually. But what that means is you step back here, and for one, you're greeted by these excellent front bucket seats, which we'll show you once we jump up front. But you just have a ton of room in this thing, and being that it's electric, sometimes that means that cars sit up a bit higher. Of course, Ioniq 5N is solely an electric vehicle, so they have been able to design this around that platform. But back here, I just have a ton of room. I mean, I can, at 5'11", sat behind myself, my knees have like a foot behind the back of the driver's seat. This is in my driving position. Fold down armrest with a couple of cup holders. We've got some USB-C ports. Not a ton going on back here, but you can lounge in comfort, and you can even recline this seat. So not only is this a fire-breathing, like, psycho hatchback SUV thing that can do 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, you can also travel in comfort in the back. So do like to see that. Lots of little N interior touches. You can see we have some unique styling here on the door panel with the checkered flag, as well as the kick panels here. We've got some unique side skirts, lots of different bodywork on this car. This is finished in Performance Blue Matte. The Ioniq 5N starts at 66 grand. This one, as spec'd with the Performance Blue Matte and Destination, almost $69,000. So it does just slip below the $70,000 mark, but with the way EVs have been depreciating lately, I don't see why you couldn't get yourself into one of these in a couple of years for about 40 grand. And I think at that price point, it's gonna be really hard to beat. Let's go ahead and jump in. Actually, before we do that, let's show you under the hood. Normal Ioniq 5 gets a frunk. The Ioniq 5N does not get a frunk. Luckily, you have a ton of room in the cabin to put stuff, but you do lose the little bit of extra storage, I imagine just because of larger electric motors and things to make this thing as brutally fast as it is. We have hood struts in here and just kind of a faux engine cover with a metal N badge there in the middle. I love the stance of this Ioniq 5N. It's a cool thing. It's got quite a bit of road presence. It turns a lot of heads, and I've enjoyed driving it the past few days. Up front, we have our typical N bucket seats. Veloster N, Elantra N, Kona N. They've all had seats like this, and I absolutely love them. I think it's one of the strong points of the N cars. The little N badges on the seats do light up at night when the car is off and you're not driving, because of course that would be a bit of a distraction, but it does make for a cool entry into the car to see those N badges lit up. Up front on the dashboard, pretty much the same, I think, as the regular Ioniq 5. The steering wheel is where we start to get very kind of bespoke here to the Ioniq 5N. We'll talk about that in a second. Door panel and kick panel, same as I showed you guys in the back seat. Our pedals down here have some unique kind of checkered flag designs to them as well. It would be cool to see some unique Ioniq 5N floor mats. These are just kind of regular Ioniq 5, and they are an option that we'll put down in the description, the exact spec of this car. But cool, let's go ahead and jump in. We'll fire it up. I suppose fire it up isn't necessarily the right word, but we will make the car begin, and then we'll go for a drive and show you what this thing's like. Comes to life just like any other Hyundai EV, and the first thing I noticed, funny enough, is that they redesigned this console. This is different than the last Ioniq 5 that I drove, because that kind of had the center console that moved back and forth, and there was a large open space here where it was kind of just a flat floor along the driver's compartment, passenger compartment, all of it was connected. I imagine this is unique to the N because there probably is more kind of but electric motor stuff that runs through here. So console's a bit different, but I don't necessarily mind that because it does kind of mean that there's more places to put things. This sits up higher. You have a wireless charger here. You can stick your phone. Center console, two cup holders that slide out in kind of a Volkswagen-y manner. And then down here we have a unique little grippy N surface. And the only thing that's a bit irritating is you have to go into the infotainment to put on your heated or ventilated seat or steering wheel. Okay, let's talk about what makes this car actually unique, and that is this steering wheel. Lot of different functionality points on here, a lot of different buttons that control your drive modes. And honestly, when you get in this car, you kind of just have to play with things to understand how they work. I was just kind of spamming buttons all week, and I just today kind of think I cracked the code on how to use all of these buttons. On the top left is the most simple form of drive modes. You can go from eco to normal to sport. Pretty simple. We see that in a lot of other Hyundai vehicles. As far as N goes, we see a couple of programmable N buttons. We've seen that on the Veloster, the Kona, the Elantra. In the Ioniq 5N, it works a bit differently. The one on the left is for your N custom modes. The one on the right enables the simulated shifting and simulated engine noise, which admittedly does sound a bit like Beamng drive, but I'm not going to hate on this because that is what makes this car so cool and so fun. It really shows you that the engineers over at Hyundai care about us. They care about people that may have to make a sacrifice to get into an electric vehicle, but still want to be able to have fun on their commutes. They still may want to go to the track and drive this car. And not only is this a fun gimmick, it is actually quite useful. I've heard from some people that have driven this car on the track that being able to kind of track what gear you're in, and you can kind of pace yourself around the track with what gear the car is in, how it's revved, things like that. And that makes sense because it's kind of easy to get lost when you're riding in absolute silence. We have our N mode display, of course, makes a cool animation when it pops up. Tons of different stuff you can do in here, mainly for track driving. This has a rear limited slip, it's got adaptive dampers, all of the stuff that you would think to see in a car that is meant to go on track. All sorts of things you can toggle on. It has a drift mode, it has a race mode, all sorts of things that the TheTopher would get very excited about to see, and I'm sure he has. If you go and watch his video, he's probably very excited to show all of this stuff. This is for your N custom modes. You can switch the motor, the steering, the suspension, the limited slip, the ESC, and the active sound. Number of different sound settings, so we'll go through those. So this one kind of sounds like a futuristic V12, like Formula One car thing. Ignition sounds like an Elantra N in Beamng drive. And then Evolution, sounds pretty similar to supersonic, honestly. I like to leave it in ignition because I feel like it's the most biblically accurate to an end product. Okay, we could sit here all day and talk to you about all of the different modes and certain things like that, but let's get out on the road and actually show you this thing in action. I'm going to put this back into normal mode, which means you do have to hit a number of different buttons. There we go. Okay, it's a matter of genuinely spamming these buttons like you're putting in a cheat code on PlayStation, and then you get back to where you need to be. Okay, we're gonna start this in normal. We have our same column shifter we get on the regular Ioniq 5. Pretty good 360 and reverse camera quality. You can see no complaints there. These paddle shifters are used like any other EV when you're in this normal drive setting, which means they are used to adjust your regen braking, which means I can pull this left pedal once and I can put this car into full one pedal drive, what Hyundai calls I pedal. So come off the accelerator, go over the speed bump. You guys can hear that chronic hatch rattle in the back. There is a TSB out on this, so you can take your Ioniq 5N into the dealership and get it taken care of. I don't know if they have parts to fix it yet. They probably do, but I know that Hyundai is aware of the issue. Driving this thing at 23 miles per hour or below is one of the most deafening experiences you'll have in an EV. It is a very, very sort of irritating pitch, and that's projected outside the car, so you don't run anyone over, I suppose. And it would work on me because I'd want to get out of the way immediately if I heard this noise coming out of anything. What I want to show you guys at first is that you can just drive this like any other electric car. It's very easy, very straightforward, pretty natural. This is about half throttle. Plenty of torque to get you going. Okay, since the second half of this video is going to be spent on the highway, let's go straight into our custom N mode. And let's pretend we're in an internal combustion engine car. Not only does it make engine noise, it makes pops and burbles on the down rev, which you can actually turn off if you're not a pops and burbles enthusiast, but I am, so I've got it toggled on right now. You can take manual control here by pulling one of the paddles. Now, what I wasn't sure of before I actually drove this car was if this actually made kind of physical movements and moved in the way that an ICE car would. You know, what I mean by that is little gaps between gears and kind of cutting power when you reach red line. And it does. When you downshift, the car lurches a little bit. You can hit limiter and it cuts power. Oh, the grip. One thing I would like to see improved are the brakes, which you definitely need when someone's trying to cut over on you without a turn signal. This is a heavy car. I mean, as far as EVs go, it's not very heavy, 4,800 pounds. But as far as normal cars go, performance cars, things you take to the track, 4,800 pounds is very heavy. So I would like to see some better brakes. The brakes feel okay, but initial bite is not fantastic, and you just have to set yourself up to brake very early. Coming in here, good on these brakes. Let's go second gear this time. And it's quick, guys. I mean, sometimes EVs kind of fall off once you get above 60, 70 miles an hour. But this thing pulls like a freight train. I mean, you can be going 70 on the highway and punch this. And it's lethally fast. It's so fast. And then, if you want to go from 601 horsepower to 641, you can hit this NGB button here on the upper right, and that gives you 10 seconds of 40 extra horsepower. So we'll demonstrate that here in a second. NGB defaults you out of your simulated N-E shift gear changes, because the purpose of NGB is just to make you go as fast as possible, and you're not going as fast as possible when you are using the E-shift, of course, because it kind of purposely makes itself a bit slower to make it a bit more entertaining. It's funny to me because it's so anti-EV. Like, EVs are supposed to just be effortlessly fast, and this is if you want it to be, but then you can just get rid of it and make it actually properly engaging, which is just, it's silly, it's all fake, but they've done a really good job faking it, genuinely. Hello, officer. Hello, officer. The good news is, he can't hear me. Well, he can a bit, because you can toggle on the speakers to kind of transmit engine noise to the outside, like that silly Dodge thing, but not quite at that level, because I tried it out earlier and revved it in the garage and it was very quiet, so it's still a bit subtle. But all of this drama, it's for you, it's not for anybody else. I think that's kind of cool. Speaking of Dodges, there's two excellent ones right in front of me there. I think this would have both of them, honestly, especially off the line. This one, I don't know, because who knows what's under the hood of that. That's a proper Charger right there. Love to see it. You can hold this paddle, that'll put you back into drive. And what's cool about this is you can keep this, the N-E shift, you can keep that on in normal mode, not eco mode, but in normal mode you can, and it'll just kind of change gear as a normal car does. So you don't even necessarily have to use this in a performance-y driving setting. If you simply want it to kind of just be able to place yourself and feel like you're driving a normal car, it simulates an 8-speed gearbox, and I mean, that's that. It's a cool thing, and while the drive modes are a bit confusing and some of them kind of don't feel finished, I think the overall tuning and the way this car behaves does feel finished. So they've really done a good job here. I think that this car has probably been in the works since the Ioniq 5 came out. Guy driving on the shoulder for some reason. Okay, now let's talk about just driving this car like a normal person on the highway. And at the end of the day, it is still a Hyundai, which means we have all of the best for its class driver aids. It's no Mercedes-Benz. It's not going to do hands-free lane changes or anything crazy like that. But we do have adaptive cruise, we have steering assist, we have lane keep assist. All of which does defeat your NE shift. So when you're on the highway and you select cruise control, it does just kind of default you back into your regular electric driving mode. That's fine. I don't mind that for cruise control because it doesn't really make any difference to me anyways. But we have our steering assist. We do have lane keep assist in this Ioniq 5N, but it's Hyundai lane change assist. I said lane keep, I meant lane change. You have to have your hands on the wheel, which kind of makes it pointless, but anyways, it is what it is. There's your lane change assist. And these Hyundai systems kind of feel a bit nervous, but they get the job done and they do it well. They'll keep you safe, they'll do what they need to do. You do just kind of sometimes feel like you are holding up traffic a bit when you're trying to make passes and things. So we'll roll without cruise control for a second. And when you turn off cruise control, if you had the E-shift toggled on, it will default you back into that setting. So we're cruising in 8th gear right now. We're going to turn our steering assist off. When you go to change lanes, it drops some gears. See, this is what I was really curious about, because all the videos I saw, people were on track, they were using this E-shift to its kind of max potential, they were pushing it to the limit. But I always wanted to know what it was like to just kind of drive this and use it as a regular function of the car. And it works perfectly. I wouldn't change anything about it. Another thing that's important when you have a car like this that does kind of need to have a split personality, and this does it better than just about anything else that markets itself as a car that is track ready. This is one of the most comfortable performance cars I've ever driven. The suspension is very soft and forgiving when you're in normal or comfort mode for the suspension. Impact harshness isn't even really that bad with these big wheels and these hard Pirelli tires. I think the fact that these tires were developed specifically for this car certainly does help. But I mean, I can take this out of E-shift and it's just whisper quiet. And you're not even thinking about anything. Just effortlessly driving and car. Not to mention elbow comfiness, quite nice. Driver's door panel gives you plenty of squish. You can adjust the center armrest and console lid to move forwards. How about seat comfort? Well, this seat is quite supportive and it's got fantastic bolstering. One thing it is lacking is adjustment. You don't have a lumbar adjustment, and it is a fully manual seat, which is hilarious to me because this is already a 4,800 pound car. What would adding another 100 pounds of power seats do to the performance? Probably nothing at this point, but I think they want to try and give you the full N experience. This car does have launch control. I'm just now remembering that, so maybe we'll go back and we'll do a launch control when it's dark out later, and I'll put that in right now. You guys can see what that's like. This slight intermission also gives me a chance to show you guys the Ioniq 5N in some golden hour lighting. Look at the way the light hits these body lines here on the side. I hope the GoPro is picking this up. It's not always super good at doing that. Also, I feel like I didn't show you the charge port earlier. There's the charge port, which you are able to open while the car is running, as it is now. Anyways, main reason we're doing this intermission is so I can show you guys a launch control in this Ioniq 5N. So let's quickly do that, and then we'll get back to the end of the video, and things will resume as normal. Okay, let's go ahead and get ourselves set up for a launch control. There are a couple of different settings that you have to enable. Let's go ahead and pull up our N mode menu, because we will eventually have to toggle on our launch control first. I'm going to put us into my custom N mode, which I have toggled since I last showed you, to have ESC in Sport. You have to have that in order for launch control to work. I also have my active sound in ignition, so without the NE shift enabled, it does sound a bit like a CVT, or kind of like a high-powered side-by-side or four-wheeler, something like that. Once you have all of that toggled on, you can come to a stop, click activate on your launch control. Little launch control logo will pop up here on the cluster, full left foot brake, full right foot throttle, release brake. And that's a launch control. It's quite arcadey, and it's funny the way it goes right when you take off, but it's so quick. Oh man. Okay, I think that's good as far as launch controls go. Let's go ahead and resume the video. I just want to try some of these other noises because I haven't driven with these yet. This does it sounds like an old, like a 1980s race car. This may be a bit too simulated for me to enjoy. Oh dear. Yes, I know there's a Venza in front of me. Thank you so much. We're gonna go in this middle lane. Ooh, it's kind of unpleasant. I feel like I'm in an airplane. I don't know what it's yelling at me for now. Supersonic. Okay. The sounds between gears. Did you guys hear that? Okay. Yeah, no. Ignition is kind of the only one I would ever do, I think. Come on, though. Can you blame them for just wanting to have fun? So many people have been saying this is stupid, but just let us have fun. Let the engineers have fun. Let people have fun. It's okay for people to enjoy different aspects of life, and if their electric car makes spaceship noises and catless Elantra end noises, then so be it. Alright guys, well, we're pulling up to the restaurant now, so this is going to wrap it up for us, but this is a cool car. I've had a lot of fun with this thing this week. Love, sir. Love, sir. Steering weight has a little bit of heft to it, kind of no matter what, but I think that's okay for a car like this. It gets very hefty when you're in sport mode. There was a section of this video that was edited out. Don't worry about why. We are grabbing this corner spot. Ooh, we're gonna drive off the ledge. We're gonna have to correct. It is still kind of a big car. I am going to fall off a cliff when I get out of this, in this parking spot, I believe, but that's okay. All right, put this thing into park. We're parked up. I think that's... Love that animation. We're on 88%. I've been seeing around 220 miles of range when this car is charged. A nice thing about this, being that it is still a Hyundai Ioniq 5, excuse the wind for the next couple minutes here, it is able to charge quite quickly, and I'm happy that I was able to make it until the end of this video without giving you any real consumer information, because this car distracted me with how much fun it is to drive. But it can charge from 10 to 80% in about 15 minutes, so you're able to take this thing on road trips and such. In fact, I have taken an Ioniq 5 on a road trip, and it was excellent. So overall, definitely the coolest EV on the current market, the most fun to drive EV by far. I know there are EVs that are faster than this, but there aren't any that are as fun and as engaging. So if you're a driving enthusiast and you are set on having an EV, or if you just want to try an EV out, maybe your significant other is kind of pushing you to go for an EV, here is your way out of just driving something that's extremely boring, because this is not boring. I've had fun with it the last few days, and I absolutely love that it exists. So that'll just about wrap it up. If I've got anything else that I want to add in, you guys will have already seen that earlier in the video. But thank you guys all so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.